Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Mary Ellen Delastrito. I am a former president of AAUW of Salem and many other board member positions as a result. So we'll leave it at that. So I'm really glad you're all here today. So I would like to welcome our student contestants, our family members, teachers, friends, community members, members of AAUW Salem and friends. We're glad to have you join us for our 5th Speech Trek event during Women's History Month. So a little bit about AAUW's mission. Our mission is to advance gender equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. AAUW Salem is part of a national organization that includes 26 branches in Oregon. The Salem branch has a long history of programming that promotes educational opportunities for girls and women. And today's event includes 10th and 11th graders from high schools in Salem and the surrounding communities. You can find the contestants' names and the schools they represent in the printed program. And this event is made possible by 2 of our late AAUW Salem branch members, Bernadine Taplin and Charlotte Holmes. They were both life members until 2012. And the Salem branch received generous bequests from their estates after their deaths. Bernadine's interests were in work and family issues and reproductive rights. She had no children of her own, but was a retired educator who influenced many children over the years. And Charlotte was the daughter of immigrants and was the first in her family to graduate from university. And she had 3 daughters who all completed degrees in higher education. Charlotte was active in the peace organization in Salem. So a little bit about our contest today. So our contest theme is race, equity, and activism. And this year we continued our partnership with Salem Reads. The student contestants were asked to read the book, Born a Crime, Stories of a South African Childhood by Trevor Noah. And they were asked to prepare a 6-minute persuasive speech focusing on one of these questions. So they had a choice. Can art, broadly defined, be used to alter the climate of racism in our country? Or can activism assist those who are oppressed, and how? Or belonging is a key theme of this book. Does Trevor Noah's concept of belonging apply to all of us as we participate in our society? So in the printed program for today's event, we want to recognize our supporters for this event. So obviously, Chemeketa Community College, where we are today, and especially our branch member, Lynn Irvin, who is our liaison for this venue and helped arrange this venue for us this morning. So thank you to Lynn. We'd also like to say thank you to Capital Community Media and KMUZ Radio, for being here to record the speeches and broadcast on TV, YouTube, and the radio. And in the program, you can also read about our judges and their backgrounds, and you can read the names of the AAUW members who have dedicated the past 6 months, at least, to planning and implementing today's event. So could the planning committee members and the AAUW branch volunteers please stand to be recognized? Thank you. So next, I'm honored to be able to introduce to you our guest speaker for this morning, Mickey Varney. So Mickey Varney is a salmon biologist with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and a former high school science and math teacher. And she's currently serving as the Salem City Councilor representing Ward 8 in West Salem. And prior to serving as Salem City Councilor, Mickey served as a member and chair of the Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for 4 years. And Mickey's been actively involved in the West Salem community, as well as has served multiple terms in leadership roles in the West Salem Neighborhood Association. And Mickey still volunteers on projects to assist our unsheltered residents as she's planted trees, pulled ivy, and built trails in many of our Salem parks. She's also secured grants for major park improvement projects in 3 of West Salem's parks. Mickey grew up in Southeast Washington, where she played competitive sports through high school and worked in generally male-dominated, non-traditional jobs during the summers while going to college and later teaching. She thrives in taking on new challenges and empowering others to do the same. Her tenacity motivated her to become a fierce advocate for women, fairness, equal opportunities, and the environment. And Mickey has been an AAUW member since 2005 and served as our branch president and in Salem for 3 years and in Dayton, Washington for 4 years. So please join me in welcoming Mickey Varney.
Wow. Well, it's so good to see everyone and be here. Again, my name is Mickey Varney. Good morning. And it's my privilege and pleasure to be here today and have the opportunity to see these young ladies compete in this competition. AAUW is just such a special, dear organization to me. It's just a lot of my beliefs and values are echoed in AAUW. We provide opportunities to help women and girls achieve their potential and encourage them to take on leadership roles where they can continue to thrive and grow and empower others to do the same. And that's kind of, that means a lot to me. Today's contest or speech trek challenges you to step out of your comfort zone. I really admire these young ladies, your willingness to step out, to get up here and speak publicly. It's hard and it's really scary, and it's also very important. Having the ability to clearly articulate your vision and to persuade and influence others is integral to being an effective leader. It requires excellent communication skills, and Speech Trek is an opportunity to practice and hone those skills. I'm here today to tell you a piece of my story and what motivated me to become a Salem City Councilor. And I feel very honored to represent Ward 8 in West Salem and to be serving the residents of the city of Salem. I was really drawn to today's theme of race, equity, and especially activism. An activist is anyone who sees the need for change and devotes their time to doing something about it. That's pretty much me in a nutshell, and a description of how I have approached my life. Most people engage in activism because of something they see or something they experience. I grew up right in the middle of the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War, the women's rights movement of the 60s and 70s, and a growing competition between humans and the environment. It was a very tumultuous time. And I feel my experiences during those years greatly influenced the direction of my life. And I'd like to share a few of them with you today. Many of you are probably familiar with the Swedish environmental activist Greta Thunberg. In 2018, at the age of 15, she stood up and challenged world leaders to take immediate action for climate change mitigation. Her voice, her image, and her message resonated around the world. And it surely resonated with me. Being a good steward of our environment has always been a driving passion for me. I organized my first action in 1970 when I was 10 years old. I still have these vivid memories of scenes from the television. We didn't have internet back then. Photos showing barrels of toxic waste floating in lakes, film clips of raw sewage and industrial chemicals seeping into waterways, and factories with tall smokestacks sending plumes of carcinogens and chemicals into the air. I felt driven to take some kind of action to help our environment in any way I could. I recruited a group of classmates and we formed a club called the Litter Spitters. Once a week, we got together after school and we went out and picked up litter along the road. We had a clubhouse, a sign, and we even had a song. And we had a purpose. We were doing our part in making a difference. 1970 was the year of our nation's very first Earth Day and was a turning point for our nation. It led to the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency and the adoption of many federal acts protecting our water, our air, and our wildlife. Here in Oregon, the nation's first bottle bill was passed, and Governor Tom McCall's Willamette River Cleanup campaign was launched. I'm looking out at you young leaders. You know, our planet critically needs that same 1970s enthusiasm and drive to help combat today's effects of a changing climate. We need you to pick up and carry that torch because I believe your generation is better positioned than any previous generation to drive significant change in protecting our planet. Being an AAUW member, obviously, I'm also a women's rights activist. In 1972, the federal civil rights law, Title IX, was enacted. Title IX prohibits sex-based discrimination in any school programs receiving funding from the federal government. Title IX was a boon for women's athletic programs. My high school had a girls' volleyball and basketball program. They didn't have softball, however, but they did have boys' baseball in the spring, and that kind of bothered me. For many years, I played City League summer ball. Softball. In my junior year of high school, I decided we needed softball at my high school. So I recruited a group of teammates, again, noticing a theme here, from fall sports, and we started our own softball team. I borrowed the uniforms from my City League team. Fortunately, they were the same colors as our school colors. And we scheduled practice games with other high schools in the state. We had a successful season, and afterwards we petitioned the school board to add girls softball to our athletics program. The following year we were official. The school paid for our coach, our uniforms, and our transportation. And Title IX helped that happen. This experience taught me about the importance of equity and how collectively we can use our voices and actions to bring about change. I wanted to share this leg of my journey as an encouraging reminder. Whatever your dreams may be, when you see an opening or a chance to make a difference, I hope you'll take advantage of the opportunity to organize, to lead, and to strive to achieve your aspirations. Believe in yourself, and you will be unstoppable. You may be familiar with the saying, our parents give us our roots and our wings. I think parents help shape our morals and values, and they provide the framework for our wings. However, it's up to us to gather that courage and jump off that branch and take flight. I've always believed you should treat people the way you wanted to be treated yourself. At the end of my first year of college, at the age of 19, I returned home for the summer and walked into a totally unexpected job. The position was as a dispatcher for a trucking firm. I would be supervising about 40 truck drivers who were needed to haul fresh green peas from the harvest fields to the Birdseye frozen food plant. I would be working the night shift, 12 hours a night, 7 days a week, for 8 weeks. And that was the easy part. My first night on the job, the old dispatcher, Louie, was there to show me the ropes. The folks who wanted to drive, and they just happened to be all men at that time, were lined up outside this long cinder block building adjacent to the Birdseye plant. There was one little bench there. Obviously, they couldn't all sit on that bench, and it was hot, late afternoon, middle of summer. Louis walked down the line and he picked the people he wanted to start the first shift. Later, throughout the next couple hours, he would pick others. The time clock didn't start until the person was selected to go to work. Folks who had not been selected were sent home after a couple hours and told to come back the next day. The whole process reminded me of choosing teams in elementary school and that gut-wrenching feeling one experiences when you don't get selected by the team captain. It didn't seem right to me. The P trucks themselves, well, not themselves, but the P trucks were not in really good condition either. Many of the lights were burned out, there were problems with the brakes, and many of the clutches were way out of adjustment. There were wires hanging under the trucks, partially attached to who knows what. Maybe they'd been picked up while the trucks were being driven over the windrows out in the fields, or maybe they'd been added just to hold something together. Regardless, it didn't look very safe to me. Within the first 2 weeks of that job, I implemented predictive scheduling so folks knew ahead of time when to report to work. I created personnel files and conducted job interviews, and I learned how to do the payroll. I made coffee and provided snacks and chatted with each driver when they came across those scales at the processing plant. I also kept a stash of light bulbs and fuses in a toolbox under my desk for those quick replacements. I even learned how to start a truck with a screwdriver by crossing the terminals on the starter solenoid. Life is very precious, and job safety is paramount. I see that every day in my job at ODFW as well. After a few weeks on this job, I contacted the owner and I told him, if a truck wasn't safe to drive, it was a liability to the company. And I told him that truck would be parked until it was fixed. Well, you can't haul peas if you don't have a truck to drive. When a truck broke down, basically we had a daytime mechanic or there was a problem with one and it was parked down at the lot, and we had a couple extra trucks, but we had to wait until that daytime mechanic came on. Well, once I started parking trucks that weren't working, a week later, we actually ended up with a night mechanic on our crew. So that was very helpful. In my second year at this job, I was successful in negotiating the first pay raise in many years for the drivers. I implemented a lot of things in that job, and I ended up working 15 successive harvest seasons while I was going to college and then was teaching. It was heartwarming to see so many faces return every single season. I'd like to think that I made a difference in their lives, as they had in mine. That job taught me skills I never could have learned out of a book. Wow, yeah, it was a great experience. I've done a lot of different things in the past 50 years, and each one has its own story. Even joining a combine crew my junior year, between my junior and senior year of college, I got on one of those custom cutting crews, and I drove trucks and combines as we traveled from Texas up to Canada. Another one of those great experiences. I was the only girl on the crew, and you just kind of see something and go for it. So in addition to being a city councilor, I'm a mom, a salmon biologist, and a union steward. I have a passion for public service and making the world a better place for all. And I thrive on challenging myself and continuing to learn and to grow every single day. The road of life isn't just a straightaway getting from point A to point B. It's filled with many twists, turns, detours, and ruts. The roads which I traveled may not always have been the easiest, but the decisions I made and the experiences along the way are what helped me become who I am today. The decisions we make at those forks in the road are how we learn, how we grow, and how we become effective leaders. We're living in extremely challenging and polarized times. It's disconcerting. Yet we are fortunate to live in a country that, while imperfect, it still tries to live up to our aspirations of equality for all, justice for all, and freedom for all. Looking out of those of you just beginning your careers, I truly believe you are better positioned than any previous generation to make significant change in our world. I hope you continue to challenge yourself, as you're doing today, for decades to come. Thank you.
Good morning. It's really wonderful seeing you all here today. Thank you for coming. And my name is Gloria Holland, and I'm part of the Speech Trek Committee. And I just have to say, I've been retired for over 20 years, and Mickey's speech inspired me. So if it can inspire an old person, I'm sure it inspired some of you who are much younger than I. I'd like to take a moment to explain what's going to happen today. I know I don't like surprises, and I want you all to enjoy this and not have to worry and wonder about what's going to happen. So I'm just going to explain the process here. At the end of my presentation, we will announce the names of the contestants today, and also the names of the judges. We'll have only one round speaking today because we have so few contestants. The judges will have a score sheet for each contestant, and these score sheets were provided to the contestants in your speech packet. So you did have an opportunity to learn how you will be judged. Contestants are judged on 3 categories: 50% on content, 25% on organization, and 25% on delivery. The score sheets to you contestants, the score sheets will be made available to you after the contest is completely over, and you can pick them up at the table where you checked in. The judges have been trained in the judging process, and they will judge independently without sharing their scores or comments with the other judges. Please understand that each speech is to be from 5 minutes 30 seconds to 6 minutes 30 seconds in length. Our timekeeper is right here, and I'm sorry, I don't.
Susie.
What's your name?
Susie.
Susie. This is Susie, our timekeeper, and I don't know Susie, so it's nice to meet you. And Susie will give you a warning at the 5 minute 30 second mark with a green, you want to hold up the green card. That's 5 minute 30 seconds. And then when you hit the 6 minute mark, she'll hold up a yellow card. And then if you, when you get to, can we do this when?
6:25.
6:25. So you will have 5 seconds left to finish up your speech, and she'll hold up a red card, which means you're not disqualified. You just have 5 seconds left to finish up. So you need to wrap it up really fast. We don't want anybody to be disqualified this year. When the round ends, we will put, we will have, and I originally said 20-minute, but since there are only 2 contestants and it's not going to take very long to tally up the score sheets, let's just have, what, a 15-minute break? And we have some refreshments at the table over in the following room. Please go ahead, get some refreshments and go on into the lobby and visit. And I want to warn the contestants and their parents, please don't talk to the judges until the contest is completely over and you've already figured out who the winners are. And after the scores are determined and after the 15-minute break, we will come back into this room to determine for the awards to be given. And during our break, you're welcome to visit and get refreshments. I'd like to introduce the judges. Esmeralda Santos, if you want to just give a wave. Esmeralda, where are you? Right there. Esmeralda Santos is an immigration attorney and sole owner of Santos Immigration Law, LLC, a firm dedicated to represent immigrant families. And you can read the entire bio, I think, in the program. Is it printed in the program? Kate Schwartzler is the owner of Indie Commons, if I could read, and Creo Solutions in Independence, am I right? Yeah, in Independence. And Sabra Jewell is the communications coordinator for the city of Monmouth, and also Professor Sabra. Oh, Kate's the professor. Okay. Anyway, these are our 3 judges. Thank you so much for coming today and helping to judge. And now allow me to introduce the speakers in the order in which you will be speaking. Our first speaker will be Catherine Morales, and in your program I think there's a different name. It was mistakenly printed, but her last name is Morales. And our second speaker will be Raquel Hendricks. You're all invited to stay and hear the speeches. Thank you for coming today, and we will see you after the winners have been announced, or when the winners have been announced. Thank you.
It feels it's nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's very nerve-wracking, but I feel like with over time and with practice, those nerves tend to go away And although I feel like it's more simple because they're people you don't know. Because when I do it in front of my mom, it's like, oh, I'm rushing. I just want this to be over. Well, if I do it with someone I don't know, although I do want it to be over, I do take the time a little bit more to like go more in depth in my speech because, I mean, they don't know it. They haven't heard it. So I think it was nerve-wracking, but it was a lot of fun. I chose my theme as belonging because I am first generation Mexican American in the United States, and like Trevor Noah, it's hard belonging, especially as both Mexican American, because you don't really know. As I go to a white school, I go to South Salem High School. I don't know if I should go talk to the Hispanic kids or if I should go talk to the white kids, or even in that school in itself. I just feel like I don't belong sometimes. So I feel like giving reassurance on people that like it's okay to feel this way, and at the end of the day, like you get to choose who you want to be and how you want to be, and that's why I chose belonging, because I related to it. My favorite part about Trevor Noah's book is overall seeing how we know that Trevor Noah is famous and it's another story, and I feel like we just need to emphasize a little bit more as to we need to like stop it with the last story, if that makes sense. Like we need to see this story, learn from it, and actually create a change of it. And I really liked the way he talked about just this whole sense of belonging. I was like, wow, like seeing him now and how he has found like his place in the world and giving that reassurance, it's like you can do it too. And that's what I really loved about the book. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary friends. Today I would like to talk about the concept of belonging and how it applies to all of us as we participate in our society, as it is presented in Trevor Noah's memoir, Born a Crime. In this book, Noah shares his experiences growing up in apartheid South Africa as a mixed-race child born to a black mother and a white father. This is a topic that is particularly relevant in today's world as we grapple with issues of diversity, inclusion, and social justice. As Noah navigates the complex and oppressive racial divisions of society, he learns that belonging is not something that is given to him, but something that he must actively cultivate for himself. Noah's book explores what it means to belong in a society that is divided by race, ethnicity, and culture. He shows us that we all have a fundamental need to belong, to be accepted, and to feel a part of something larger than ourselves. But he also illustrates how society often creates barriers that prevent us from belonging, and how those barriers can lead to pain, isolation, and even violence. Noah's story is a powerful reminder that the struggle for belonging is not unique to any one person or group. It is a fundamental human need that we all share, regardless of our race, ethnicity, gender, or any other characteristic. We all want to feel like we belong in our society, that we are valued members of our communities, and that we have a place in the world. For some people, those barriers might be obvious, like the institutionalized racism and segregation that Noah faced in apartheid South Africa. For others, the barriers might be more subtle, like the microaggressions that people of color face in predominantly white spaces, or the exclusion that LGBTQ+ people experience in some communities. However, as Noah's experiences illustrate, belonging is not always easy to come by. In many societies, including our own, there are deep-seated social, cultural, and political forces that can create barriers to belonging for certain groups of people. These barriers can be based on race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religion, or any number of other factors. But what Trevor Noah ultimately realized is that the concept of belonging is not just about fitting with a particular group or identity. Rather, it's about recognizing and celebrating our shared humanity, even in the face of our differences. We can also challenge the dominant narratives that reinforce the barriers to belonging. In Born a Crime, Noah talks about how the media and popular culture of South Africa portrayed Black people as inferior and dangerous, and how that narrative fueled racism and violence. Similarly, in our society today, there are often harmful stereotypes and myths about certain groups of people that prevent them from feeling like they belong. This is a message that applies not just to South Africa, but to all of us as we navigate the complexities of our own societies. Whether we live in the United States, Europe, Asia, Latin America, or anywhere else in the world, we all take challenges of belonging. We all have to grapple with issues of identity, culture, and diversity, and find ways to bridge the gaps between ourselves and others. The challenge then is to recognize these barriers and to work to overcome them. It requires a collective effort from all members of our society to build a more inclusive, equitable, and just community that recognizes the inherent value of all people. It means working to break down the walls that divide us and to create spaces where everyone can feel like they belong. But regardless of the form that the barriers take, it's important for all of us to work together to dismantle them. It means confronting our own biases and prejudices and being willing to listen to and learn from people whose experiences are different from our own. It means advocating for policies and practices to promote equity and inclusion and speaking out against those that perpetuate discrimination and exclusion. And so the question becomes, how do we do this? How do we cultivate a sense of belonging in a world that is often so divided? One answer, according to Trevor Noah, is empathy. By putting ourselves in other people's shoes, by trying to understand their experiences and perspectives, we can begin to see the world through their eyes. We can begin to appreciate the diversity of our world and celebrate the things that make us unique. But empathy alone is not enough. We also need to be willing to challenge our own assumptions and biases, to confront the ways in which our own identities and perspectives may be limiting our ability to connect with others. Although many allies tend to say, "I may not understand, but I stand," the silence of people who claim to understand can contribute to systemic oppression by the continuation of harmful stereotypes, the failure to use privilege to confront oppressive institutions, intersectionality, and modern-day oppression. To resist oppressive structures, inequitable, and advance the development of a more equitable society for all, allies must take decisive action. In the end, however, the rewards of these efforts are immense. When we work to create a society that values and celebrates the diversity of its members, we all benefit. We all feel a greater sense of belonging, and we all have a greater opportunity to contribute to our community and to the world. In conclusion, as we go forward in our own communities, let us remember Trevor Noah's message and take inspiration from his story. Let us strive to be empathetic, open-minded, and willing to learn from each other. Commit ourselves, recognize and address the barriers that prevent people from feeling like they belong. And by challenging the dominant narratives that reinforce those barriers, we can create a more inclusive and welcoming society for everyone. Let us celebrate our differences, even as we recognize our shared humanity, and let us work together to create a world where everyone belongs. Thank you.
Well, I think it's a little bit scary because usually when I'm giving speeches, I have a partner. So that this is definitely different. But I really like public speaking. I just like talking with people in general. So it made me feel happy to be able to kind of share the story and my thoughts on it. What made me choose to do my speech on belonging? Well, I think that overall in my life, I know that I've struggled with a sense of trying to figure out where I stand or who I belong with or what crowds I want to be a part of. And so I think that listening and reading Trevor Noah's book and trying to see and really seeing how he struggled with the same things just really stood out to me. And so it was pretty obvious when I had to go decide which theme I wanted to tackle. I definitely think that that one stood the most out to me just because I could relate the most to it. I think that just what the best part of his book was probably just probably the humor in it. He told a really traumatic story and also a series of traumatic stories actually about how he grew up, but he really brought in his kind of sense of humor about it while also being able to maintain a seriousness about the situations and really bring awareness to what situation he was in. But also to see how he has become the person he is today and to see what events actually shaped him into that. And I think that was just an amazing story altogether. So being able to talk about it in my speech was definitely probably a really great highlight.
Where do I belong? It is a question that every single person has asked themselves at some point in their life. That is 8 billion people from different races, ages, and genders, all asking the same question. Belonging is a crucial theme in the book Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. The dictionary defines belonging as being properly classified and being attached or bounded by birth, allegiance, or dependency. But Trevor Noah defines belonging as a choice. In the book, Born a Crime, Trevor Noah talks about how he was growing up in South Africa. His mother is black and his father is white, and he's born during a time when the relationship between the different races is illegal. Trevor Noah was born a crime. Throughout his life, he felt as if society didn't accept him. He couldn't go out in public with his family and even hold his own mother's hand because he would be seen as illegal. This also meant that his family could not live together. They lived separately, and Trevor grew up primarily living with his mother. Throughout his life, he questioned his belonging. He was the only person in his family that looked like him. And in school and in the community, he struggled to fit in. Oftentimes, he felt as if he was too black or too white. In an effort to fit in, Trevor picked up many different languages. This helped him with his code switching. Code switching is when you switch between languages or behaviors in order to fit in with a specific group of people. Despite this advantage, he still felt as if he did not belong. It was almost as if he was living outside of the world and looking in. In the book, he says, "I wasn't popular, but I wasn't an outcast. I was everywhere with everybody, and at the same time, I was all by myself." This quote really resonated with me personally. Like Trevor, I'm mixed. Now, I did not grow up in a society in which I was viewed as a crime, but my mother is Asian and my father is black. As a mixed kid, I have struggled with trying to figure out where I belong. And like Trevor, I felt lonely, and it is a lonely experience. But people in society, there are so many different ways that they feel as if they don't belong in a certain place. Students especially deal with this on the daily basis. Some might feel as if they are smart enough to compete, or if they're too smart to compete in regular level classes, or if they aren't smart enough to compete in in advanced classes. But one thing that we all share in common as students is making friends, and we view that often as a challenge. We all long for people that share the same interests as us, and oftentimes we go out and seek social media because we see that social media is probably the best way to reach others. We create posts, and we also collect a large amount of followers, but at the end of the day, we are still lonely, despite sharing all the same things with these other people. In Trevor Noah's book, we hear about how he discovers different things along his journey of belonging. Throughout his childhood, he struggles to fit in. And it wasn't until he met the Cheese Boys, which were called the Cheese Boys because that they were the only ones who could really afford cheese when they were ordering with their meals. It was with them that he started selling bootleg CDs and discovered his DJing talents. This was a turning point for Trevor, because for the first time, he was truly having fun, and he felt like he had a sense of belonging. This also gave him the confidence to later, with the help of his mom, reconnect with his father. He wanted to build a better relationship with him. Trevor, when he met with his father, asked him multiple questions, but it made his father feel as if he was being interrogated. That is not what his father wanted. His father did not want to answer questions as if he was being interviewed. He wanted to answer questions to get to know his son. He wanted to get to know Trevor and who he was. Trevor's father had kept track of every single one of Trevor's accomplishments, and this really stood out to Trevor. He says that this made him realize that his dad had never not been his dad. And even though he didn't know it, his father was extremely proud of him and of all of his accomplishments and supported him. At the end of the book, Trevor finally realizes that we choose where we belong. We choose this despite what others think of us and despite where we come from. Currently, Trevor Noah is a host, a comedian, and a successful author. He has finally found where he belongs, and he truly inspires other people, especially like me, and as they move forward, trying to discover themselves. This book that he has written speaks to the idea that we oftentimes get caught up in what others think of ourselves and where we come from, as opposed to choosing who we want to be and to be true to ourselves. We can't control who raises us, and we can't control where we come from, but we can choose where we belong. So I challenge you to think of yourself. I challenge you to think who you are choosing to be and where you are choosing to belong. I know that reading this book has helped me to answer the question of where do I belong. I relate to the confusion and doubt that Trevor Noah had gone through as a child. And now I am looking towards the future. I am looking towards a college and career, and that is scary, especially when I don't know where I'm going and I don't know what I want to do. But reading this book and hearing Trevor's voice has shown me that it is my choice. It is my choice to believe in myself and my decision to find where I belong. Thank you.
All right. Well, we've had an exciting morning, and I'm excited to, first of all, announce the second place winner. And the second place winner wins $300. So second place goes to Catherine Morales. And I should mention that these scores were very high and very close. So excellent job. So our first place winner, congratulations to Raquel Hendrick. Oh, sorry, Raquel won her prize. Thank you for that. Was $500. Yay! Congratulations. Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you.